Okay, so Peter, just wanted to go over a few things here and try to explain how I'm coming up with this little this answer idea here. So we're pretty sure that the lactates on the second part of the test in December were off. Um, and one of the ways we can kind of confirm that we're off is we have lactate curves here from both October and December. The lactate curves, this is a little blip here in December, this one, but the lactate curve here shows an LT2 of 225 watts. Now, the absolute lactate numbers are different from your previous test, but that's fine. We're looking for the changes. And then we have now that same picture, but LT2, slightly higher heart rate in October, which you've noticed your heart rates are lower in December, and you can see that all the way up on the test, really up to 275 watts. So we've got LT2 hasn't changed. So we know that LT2 has to come before balance point, right? Balance point cannot be below LT2. So we've got LT1, then we go balance point, then we go LT2, then we've got MAP. So we can look at the LT1 stayed the same at 225. So that then, let me just go to the balance point stuff. So because we know that in December, LT1 has remained at 225, we know that balance point has to be at or slightly above. So if I manipulate the balance point curve with these lactates that were very flat and lower, and we make balance point the lowest one before that comes the soonest after LT1, this is probably legit. So your October balance point was 220, and then that would make your new balance point 228. So doesn't seem like a big change really, but 228 is I think it's around 3.5 or 4%. So 220 divided by 228, yeah, 96.4 minus 96.4 is 3.6. So you've got like a 3.6% improvement on the balance point. And I'm pretty confident that this is where it is based on using LT1 to kind of confirm that it can't be lower than that. So that's my take on the lactate curve. And, you know, yeah, we're manipulating the data on the second part of the test, but I think there's a few bad errors, and this kind of all makes sense when you compare it to LT1. So LT1's the same. Balance points kind of moved about 3.5%, and MAP's down a little bit. Sorry, I always have trouble with the windows. So the other thing we can look at is just some generalities, like, you know, MFTP is like 253. You have a pretty good model. I've had you do a few tests. You know, you did a 1 minute test which fixed this little bump. You know, arguably you could fix this one and this one, but like that's a bit overkill because they're a bit above. So I think with this above, and this above, and this above, we've got a reasonably good curve here in this 1 to 3 minute range. So MFTP at 253, that, bear with me. So yeah, I gotta get rid of this first. So I always have trouble when I'm using the screen. So with regards to the balance points, you know, we've got upper end is down a bit for sure, which is interesting. So, you know, we want to take a look at with the shuttles and the harder training. It's maybe not the answer, which is why we do this. You didn't have a decline in LT1, and you had an improvement in balance point. Modeled FTP sitting right around there at 250, and you know, based on lactate, you know, I'm seeing this more and more and more. But you know, this here for you, you still have a good definition here. This would be LT2, which puts us right at around, you know, just 250 watts, 248 watts. So that's kind of correlates with WKO5. So we're pretty good that LT2 is right here. What I'm seeing is, I've never noticed this even after all these years, that as people start to improve LT1 and their balance point and push it to the right, LT2 is often disappearing. So this is where the respiration comes in really handy when looking at a test. So I've kind of added to the spreadsheet a respiration graph, to count respiration rate at the end of each step. And then I can graph the respiration rate, and that really helps define things when we don't actually have lactate deflection. But for you, we've got a good LT1. Here at 225, we've got a good LT2 around 250. Like I said, matches up with MFTP, so we're good there. And balance points up about 3.5%. If we look at other just things to kind of be look at things in a positive light here. Pretty much everything in WKO is trending up over the last 90 days. So that's always a good sign. The only, yes. So I really think that the next decision is that what training did you do based on my recommendations or some stuff that you did that we thought would have changed MAP that's actually made it worse. Okay, so because that's the only thing that's worse in the test. And arguably, there's no racing right now, so the fact that all the aerobic stuff has kind of stayed the same or gotten better, that's great. The balance point has moved 3.5%. If you can think about that again, if we move that balance point another 3.5% in 2 months, now you're going to be pushing upwards of 235, 238 on balance point, and these numbers start to really look good. So there's some great heart rate response changes since the last time. Balance points up a bit. LT2 hasn't fallen. The only real concern is this kind of upper end, and that I think we almost have to go back to just endurance and balance point and maybe some sprint work to see if we can move this top end needle by not doing any high intensity, which is, sometimes what I keep coming back to. So this is always an experiment. We're going to try different training. We got to see how you respond. I'm pretty comfortable with stating that, LT1 and balance point in December are what they are in this test. And there was just a few bad lactate readings there. So let me know your thoughts, and then we can maybe go back and forth on the forum about some next training ideas. But my gut feeling is go back to endurance and tempo and a bit of sprint maintenance, and just do 1 month of it. And let's see if 3 weeks without any intensity changes the upper end. Because even if it moves the needle a little bit, you get another 30 seconds or another 60 seconds in that MAP test and the max heart rate comes up, then we're heading in the right direction. But we just have to be patient and try another month. The only thing I guess we have to make sure that I do see when people test themselves more and more and more is, when you're testing yourself, you got to be honest and make sure you go hard enough. I'm not saying you didn't, but the more we test ourselves, the easier it becomes to oh, this is really hard, I'm going to stop here. So just every time you do a test, maybe make sure you are kind of, make sure you're really, really tapped out at the end of the test. Anyway, let's go back and forth on the form a bit, but I think these numbers are I'm pretty comfortable with these.